Okay, here we are on Mum Moments, and I'm very excited to have the lovely Lulu with me here today.
Hello.
And by way of introduction, so Lulu is a personal trainer. She has a background in counselling. She's also a diet recovery coach, which I think is so important, especially as we're going to talk about it today, like how to basically unfuck your the years and years of dieting now that you're a mum, because there's so much stuff around that we're going to get into. But Lulu's mission is to help us to create an amazing relationship with food and fitness that is bullshit and shame-free. So I think we could all benefit from that.
That would be my dream. Wouldn't that just be a magical world if we all lived
Absolutely.
Yes.
Certainly would. So let's dive straight in and let's talk about first, what about before we become a mum? So what are you seeing most commonly in women around diet, exercise and body image?
Awesome. Thank you for that lovely intro. So I guess with where I work and I work with my clients and things like that, I work in a commercial gym, but I also obviously come into contact with a lot of people on social media. So, I get the broad spectrum of people in different stages of where they're at with their exercise, with their fitness, with their lifestyle journey, all that sort of thing. And so the sort of things that I am concerned about or would like to see done differently, I guess, is there's a huge trend at the moment with sort of this wellness space and this kind of real push around the aesthetics, that fitness has really become very focused on the physical and the aesthetic that go with the physical. So it's not just like getting fit and healthy now. You have to be ripped, you have to have abs, you have to have 0% body fat, and you have to be doing all that obviously all at once. And then obviously there's the food part of it that as a society we are becoming more value-led with what we eat. So we start to believe that if we're eating really well, that means that we are perhaps a better person morally, or that what we eat is part of our identity. And this can sort of be a very slippery slope to go down to a bit of some disordered eating patterns, and then disordered eating leads to eating disorders, or just a really unhappy space where people live in their body with exercise and with food, but their mind is in a really, really unhealthy space.
Yeah, and it's so easy, isn't it, to get caught up in that I'm restricting myself and it's healthy, and therefore people don't even pick up on the fact that it's not healthy.
100%. And I think it's just so normalized now that everyone I know is on a diet. Everyone I know is cutting out carbs or calories or sugar or fat or whatever for the sole purpose of aesthetics. There's no health benefit to it. It's just that I am trying to slim down or tone up or whatever, so I'm just going to cut out whole food groups. And everyone's on a diet, and just because you're trying to lose weight doesn't mean that you're doing it from a place of health. It doesn't mean that you're doing it from a healthy mindset. And I think it's time that we sort of started like questioning all the stuff that's happening around us. And just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean that it's okay, and doesn't mean it's healthy, and doesn't mean that you have to do it either.
Yeah, and I guess with that, it's like, what we're focusing on there are very short-term goals. We're focusing on the fact that we want to look a certain way. Maybe emotionally something's missing, so we're validating ourselves with that restriction in order to, if I look thinner, skinnier, more lean, more ripped, whatever it may be, then I offer more value. But what we're not considering is the long-term impact of that. So what would you say that the main implications of restricted eating and over-exercising actually are long-term, and let's say for females?
Yeah. And look, this is a consistent challenge for me, for females that I work with, for people that I talk to. Long-term overtraining, undereating, putting your body in a consistent energy deficit means that things will start to shut down. Like this is proper health concerns. This is not just like a little bit of stuff might happen. So obviously if you're in a energy depleted zone, you're much more likely to get injured. You're much more likely to be fatigued and things when you're training. So that's going to be one of the, I guess, probably more shorter term implications. But then there's the things like the your bone density, your muscle deterioration, just in terms of those more obvious physical health concerns. And that's sometimes where people probably start to realize what they're doing isn't the best for their body when they go and work out. They've got shin splints because they've been so energy depleted, or they get told they've got the bone density of an 80-year-old when they're only 30 because they've been doing this for so long. And then on top of that, you have obviously all of our internal structures. So, as females, we are very reliant on our hormones, and that sort of structures how our bodies function very differently from men, where they're not so perhaps hormone driven. And so as soon as your cycle gets messed with from under eating and overtraining, that's your body saying that something's not right, something's not working. And I hear from women that they're like, oh, I haven't had my period for 6 months, for a year, or, it comes and goes. That's something that is your body saying it's shutting down slightly. It's saying that you can no longer carry a baby, so I'm not going to produce and I'm not going to give you that fertility to be able to carry a baby because I'm so concerned about my overall health. That's what your body's basically saying. And I think there's coming a trend now where we're seeing people maybe 30s to 40s with a lot more issues around fertility because of that history of even with the overtraining and the exercise and the food, but also just living that very stressed life, which we all do. This is the reality, but not understanding why recovery is important, not understanding why fueling your body is important, not understanding why looking after yourself is important long term.
And I think it's probably a conversation for another time if we're talking about nutrition and fertility, because I think what we're like, the audience that we're talking to today and the majority of women that are going to be watching are postnatal women that have had babies. I definitely wanted to start at the prenatal element, and if you are someone that's suffering or experiencing fertility issues and that has been your history, then I think we need to look into that as well. What would you say to somebody, let's say that they are getting their period, so that their nutrition, like that it's not being affected to that extent, but they have a history of either eating disordered or disordered eating, and they are either early pregnancy or planning on falling pregnant, and they have a fear of gaining weight. So how do we, from a mindset perspective, how do we help that woman?
The first challenge is always going to be if she sees this as a problem, because so many people will have some very unhealthy and disordered eating habits, but they think that's very normal because that's what they've seen their mum do, or that's what their friends do, or that's what everyone's doing. No one eats carbs. That's fine. Like, why would I need to eat carbs? Without perhaps recognizing that as much as it's a behavior, it's very much about where these thoughts coming from. So what's driving this? And as you said, there's that fear, that intense fear of gaining weight. And so sometimes it can be something like pregnancy or an injury, or a big shift in lifestyle where your routine gets thrown out and your body does change, and you start to realize like, oh, okay, the thoughts that I was having that I thought, that wasn't that serious or wasn't a big deal, are now starting to be really, really overwhelming and really controlling and making me feel really uncomfortable about what's happening with my body. So if that was someone who's started to be like, okay, maybe I would like to change something in this area.
They want to have a baby, right? So they're like, I'm being forced to somehow change that or overcome it, or set myself up for a lot of anxiety and a lot of what's the other option is shit, right?
Yeah, what is the other option? Like, you can keep just living the life that you're living, but, you know, something might have to shift if you want to have that baby. And so, yeah, if you're noticing, that's when I would be like, okay, I need to get some professional support. So that might be just finding a good nutritionist, a dietitian, or a GP, and being like, you know, this is kind of what's going on with me. Can you help me to understand a little bit more about my body and things like that? It might be a matter of talking with a therapist, a counsellor. There is plenty of free services that you can get in contact around Australia, which do deal as well with eating disorders and having a healthier relationship with your body and food. So it might be just reaching out to them, seeing what's around, or it might be then, you know, working with a trainer or a coach or someone who has a knowledge with that area as well. But I think it's always going to be about, if you are noticing these kind of things, it is about reaching out for help and not just sitting with it in your own head, because, you know, we know with the thoughts that go along with it, so much of it is wrapped in shame.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys talk about shame a little bit. I would imagine you probably do, because we're females, we know all about that. But the shame is when it stays inside and it stays with us and we feel like we can't share it and we feel like we're the only one. But everyone is struggling with it. That's the thing.
I think there's so much wrapped up in that as well. Like, if you kind of delve into relationships and shame and validation and all of that stuff, it's like, you know, if you're still moving through a period of if I don't look a certain way, then I'm not lovable.
Yeah.
And then you're moving into this period of, I'm going to fall pregnant and maybe my partner's not going to love me if I put on weight, then, you know, there's definitely a mindset. And for me, I would go, that's a counseling thing rather than a nutritionist thing, unless that nutritionist is trained in counseling and diet recovery, I guess. So far out, man, that's like a rabbit hole. That's huge. Like, well, no, it's like, is it even the nutrition that's the problem? Is it the self-validation and the way that we feel about ourselves? Is that the problem? That's not even the nutrition.
It's the behaviors are the problem, but it's the thoughts that are driving the behavior that need to change. So it depends if you have someone who can conceptualize that. And it could be any of those different types of therapies or helping professionals, but they need to have the understanding that the behaviors that we're doing are not just things that are surface level. Everything we do comes from somewhere underneath.
Yeah, and it's not just about going, okay, well, instead of worrying about that, just eat this. It's like, we need to break down the thoughts that are going on, therefore then the behavior changes, rather than change the behavior and hope the thoughts that just kind of go with that.
Totally, 100%. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Cool. So I have this theory. Let's say that you're somebody who has over-exercised and under-eaten your whole life, and then you're lucky enough to fall pregnant. In that process of over-exercising and under-eating, some of us screw up your metabolism, so it becomes a lot harder then to eat a normal amount of food without putting on weight, because basically you've messed up your metabolism. So falling pregnant and being pregnant in our society, unfortunately, is one of the most socially acceptable ways for a woman to gain weight. And then hopefully we have this opportunity, if we catch somebody early postnatally, we can potentially help them to reset their metabolism after they've had their baby by introducing better eating habits and better thought processes and stuff around food. Do you agree with that, or am I just like on some random tangent?
No, I think and I think certainly when someone is pregnant, like the body sort of does a whole lot of shit that we have no control over, in a good way. Like it starts your hormones to start doing all the stuff that they need to be doing. Like everything starts to kind of be running the way that it should be. So I think that's certainly true with your metabolism and things like that, and the hormone function. So then it's a matter of post-baby. Again, I guess what someone is seeing, who's around them, their social supports, what they feel like is the normal response to having a baby and what their body should be doing and what it should be looking like. So obviously we have social media, which we don't even need to go down that rabbit hole, right? But that doesn't help. Like that helps no one to feel good about their post-body post-baby body. But it could be of you have a really good social support and you have a good social network, and everyone who is experiencing the same thing is also like, hey, well, I'm doing this gentle exercise course. I've started eating better. I'm really struggling with time, but I've noticed that when I'm able to eat these sort of things, my energy feels really good. Or you could have a social circle who's like, guess what? I just did this awesome juice detox and you should do it too.
Yeah.
So I would love to say that we should all be able to do it, but it's like this. Social media has a lot to answer with that. I think that particularly that pressure, and there's a feeling of panic that it needs to be yesterday. This weight needs to be off now. And so panic leads to drastic actions or things that are more in the extreme, rather than being like, okay, I carried a baby for 9 months. Give me at least 9 months to at least get to some sort of semblance and reality before I need to go on this.
Yeah, so I guess that's around that resetting expectations. And I don't mean resetting expectations to, you can't, if you want to have the body of your dreams after you've had a baby, you can absolutely do that. But how do we come at that from a place of love rather than a place of punishment and a place of hate language, especially towards our body? If somebody recognizes that they've been on this journey before of either eating disorders or disordered eating, they've had a baby, and the only thing that they know is if they want to lose weight, they cut calories and they move more. Where do they start? We've talked a little bit about mindset, but what are, like, let's say 3 easily implementable things that they could put into their day or into the way that they eat that could help them to reframe the way that they're approaching nutrition?
I think it still comes down to mindset or thoughts or feelings around food. I really always try to encourage my clients to think about that they're fueling their body, that we're replenishing, that we're building our energy, and just take so much of that focus away from restricting and shrinking and getting smaller. I, of course, understand that most of my clients are there to lose weight or to change their body composition, but I think encouraging them and reminding them that they can do it from a place where they genuinely are doing it for care. You care about your body, you care about your well-being, you care about being the best version of you, not because I hate what I am or I dislike what I'm at now. There's a huge difference about the way that we treat ourselves when we think about how the actions and the choices that we're making. And so that's basically like the foundation of everything that I tell people in the way that they're doing and the actions they're taking. So if you're making choices around your food, ask yourself, is this something that's going to fuel my body? Is this something that's going to give me energy? Is this something that's going to make me feel better? Or is this something that, I'm using as an emotional crutch, or I'm using because I feel bad about myself, or because I don't like what I'm seeing? So there's that positive or that negative choice when we're being aware of the decisions that we're making. And I think awareness is a huge, huge part of it. And then I guess, in terms of like exercise, just find something that you enjoy. That's the main thing, because if you enjoy it, you actually keep doing it. There's no point to do something that you fucking hate.
It's so true. Yeah.
If you don't like going to the gym, don't go to the gym. If you like going for walks outside, go for walks outside. I think we feel like, oh, well, everyone knows the way to lose weight is you go to the gym 3 times a week, you do your cardio, you do your weights, you do pump session, and then you go for a walk with the baby with the stroller, and that's it. Well, not everyone wants to do that.
No, but I think that if we could do that, it's better than those that are just out there running and running and running and running and running. So yeah, I do think there's I think that one of the key things that stood out for me there was awareness. So if you're somebody who has struggled with eating disordered eating in the past, being aware of, okay, I've just been to the fridge and picked up a chocolate bar. Don't keep them in the fridge in the first place. But why am I eating that? Or why am I going to the shop to get that? Have I had a bad day? Am I feeling run down? And if you are, is there a better way that you can fuel yourself? Or there's also that piece of, if you're going to eat the chocolate bar, eat it and enjoy it, and don't beat yourself up and don't layer yourself with that guilt on top, because that really doesn't serve anyone, and it keeps us in that cycle of just feeling like shit about ourselves. So,
totally. And that's what I always say, like, if you want to eat it and enjoy it. Like, don't sit there and contemplate eating it for 4 hours, eat it, and then hate yourself. Be like, I'm choosing to eat this treat because I really freaking love pavlova. So that's what I'm choosing to eat on today. And then I will get on with my life.
And there's no calculation over that pavlova means I need to now go to the gym for this many hours or this kind of thing. So
we need to also enjoy food. Like, food is there for pleasure, for our souls. And when we get to the point where we're so rigid and restrictive about it, which so many of us are, unfortunately, it takes all the pleasure out of it. And food is like our socializing. It's so much of our social fabric as well that I just don't want people to be scared of it.
No, and I think, so what are some things people can do if they feel like food is consuming them? So if they're consistently thinking about how many calories or, the family's having, so if a mum is cooking dinner for the family, but then she's cooking a separate meal for herself, so what are the triggers that make you go, this is a problem?
Like, if I was hearing something.
Yeah. Or what's the self-talk that's going on in someone's head that may have a problem that doesn't realize they have a problem because they think they're just eating healthy?
I think rigidity. So if you have some fears about eating off plan, or your plan is so rigid that if someone wanted to do something spontaneous, or you're eating out and that makes you feel anxious, feel worried about this because you can't stick with the routine that you've given yourself. When we get stuck in that very all or nothing, that sort of black or white mindset, that's something that I can hear when people talk about it. It's something that you kind of have to tune in to hear it. But yes, it's very much about it. I'm either good or I'm bad.
Yeah.
I'm on or I'm off. I'm on the plan or I'm off the plan. And obviously, when you're off the plan, that's when you feel guilty and shit and shameful and all those sort of things. So living in that area of grey, that in the middle. So we don't have to associate our identity with being on or off the plan.
Yeah.
We can always still make the choice to do the actions without the guilt and the shame.
Yeah.
So there's that. I guess that's a big one with the kind of the very rigidity thinking. And then when someone's talking about always needing to burn the calories or what's the word? I can't think of it. Anyway, eat back your calories or something like that. So someone's sole purpose of exercise is to be burning off what they've eaten.
Yeah.
And so everything is always in that cycle. And then what it leads to, obviously, is those compulsive feelings about exercise. So exercise is not something that I just do. It's something that I have to do, because if I don't, I haven't burnt that food, and then I am unworthy and I'm guilty because I've eaten this food that I don't deserve.
Yeah.
So that.
And then I'm going to layer on guilt on top of the fact that I couldn't go to the gym when I was supposed to go to the gym. And not only have you eaten the food and you feel guilty about eating the food, you've not done the exercise, therefore you can feel bad again, therefore you just feel like shit. Yes. And why would you feel good about yourself when that's the self-talk that's going on the whole time? And then let's draw attention to the fact that when we are mothers, we're not only looking after ourselves. So we have these little people that when they're babies, they might not see it. But as they get older, step by step and bit by bit, those children they're copying what we're doing, or
we're role modeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they sit down to a meal every night and dad and the kids are eating the pasta and mum's got a fucking salad, what's that message saying to the children? Like, even a 5-year-old is going to pick up on that stuff.
Of course. And then mum follows it up by saying something negative about her body.
Yeah, or standing in front of the mirror and smoothing your stomach down because you're looking at how big your stomach is, and you might not say anything, you might not realize that you're doing that, but it's that what we do to our children is so much more powerful than the words that we're saying to them. So what would you say to women that are in that position?
Look, I think it's hard. It's really hard, because we are fed so many messages that it's not okay to like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So undoing all of that hard work is really hard. And I say that to people all the time, like, this shit is not going to happen overnight. To unfuck all the messaging and all the brains and all the thoughts and the mindset that we have about ourselves, about how we should feel about ourselves, will take time. But it's so worthwhile. Like, if you can even just start to like yourself just a little bit more, it leads to so many possibilities and openings of things that you didn't think that were possible for you, because you always sort of believed that you weren't good enough or you weren't worthy. So you never took those little steps that could be anything in work, in relationships, in life, in parenting. So I think, recognizing and accepting that this is the world that we live in, that we are constantly bombarded with messages that tell us we should buy things because we're too old, we're too fat, we're too white, we're too skinny, we're too, like, anything that you are, there is something, a product that will fix that. So recognizing that this is the world we live in, choosing not to buy into those messages and being like, okay, cool, that's fine. I can notice that for what it is, but I don't have to go down that rabbit hole and tell myself that, if I do this or bought that or started this program, I would feel better about myself. It really starts to be that internal mirror where we start to give ourselves what we need.
I wonder if we could use that piece where you're talking to your child, and it's like, if your child came to you and said, I'm not going to eat the pasta because it's going to make me fat, what is the conversation that you would have with that child? And then can you now have that with yourself so that your child doesn't even need to have that conversation with you? So it's almost like going, what are all the worst things about body image and self-love that your child could approach you with and question? And how would you, as a mother that doesn't want her child to hurt or compare herself and all of those things, or himself, how would you respond to that? And then start to use that language with ourselves.
Totally. And, I think they talk about a lot with counselling and techniques and stuff is talk to yourself like you were a small child.
Yeah.
Or talk to yourself like you were your best friend. So
yeah, absolutely.
If that's that inner dialogue, what would you say to someone? Like, you're not going to tell your best friend, don't eat the pasta, you're fat.
No.
I mean, if you want to have friends.
No, but you wouldn't. You'd be like, you're beautiful, and if you enjoy the food, eat the food.
Right.
And
I always like to ask this question, like, when you think of the people that you love in your life, that you're closest with, what are the traits and the qualities that they have about them that you love?
Yeah.
Because it's probably not the size of their pants, and it's not that they've got like glowing blemish-free skin, and it's not that they've got great boobs. I think, all those things that we can think about the people that we love, like the qualities and the things that make them who they are the things that we should also be able to recognize in ourselves.
Yeah, it's so true. I think that's a really good space to kind of wrap up this conversation. But what I would absolutely love is to call anyone that is watching this video to post in the comments. Obviously, if you've got questions and things like that, put that in there. But what are the things that you would say to yourself about yourself from a place of love? And it doesn't even, if I have to be about appearance, it's almost like that, let's start to compliment people on themselves, not on the way that they look. So I notice this a lot now. It's like when someone walks up to you, it's like, oh, you look like you've lost weight, or you look a certain way. It's like, how do we compliment people in a way that's got nothing to do with body image or aesthetics?
Yeah, totally. And it starts with us.
Absolutely, it does. It does start with us. So if you're watching this and you've watched till now, put that in the comments of this video. Like, how would you talk to yourself about yourself if it was coming from a place of love? And I'll let you interpret that however you like, so I won't put too many restrictions on that. But Lulu, was there anything else you wanted to finish with today?
No. Look, I think this is a important conversation. Obviously, you can see I get pretty excited about it. And it's a conversation that we need to keep having. 100%. So if anyone wants any more info, feel free to DM me.
Yeah, where do we find you?
So you can find me online. My Instagram is Mind Body Mojo, and a Facebook page. And you can just Facebook me, Lulu Thompson, if you want to find more about me as well.
And you got a website?
Yes, or same. Mind Body Mojo.
Mind Body Mojo.
Body Mojo.
We might put the link below the video once we post it. And how I reckon, could we have moved forward with this generation of mothers, us, that have overcome this eating crap, and we're no longer passing it on to our younger generations. I think that would be a massive goal and a massive achievement.
I'd be very happy.
It starts with us right now.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.